Peace. Good morning, family. How you doing? It's Mr. R2 here at Consistency is Currency. Man, this thing is too loud. Here at Consistency is Currency, your morning podcast of choice. I would like to say good morning. Today is Tuesday, Wednesday. Wow, I almost said today is Tuesday. Today is Wednesday, May the 4th, and it's like middle of the week. it's, it's, it's like May is just flying by already. The 4th of May is like Sunday was the first, and today is Wednesday. So we're closer to midweek. We're closer to mid May already. But good morning to you. I thank you for being here. Those that are watching right now in the podcast, well, watching on the Facebook, watching on the YouTube, and those that may be listening, especially on the replay in the podcast world. So I thank you and I appreciate you for being here. So we're talking about something that is very peace. Good morning, Ms. Williams. We're talking about something very interesting. Now, it came out of a conversation this past evening, but I wanted to touch on it. I wanted to expand it. I wanted to communicate about it just a little bit more, just to see how we see it. I want to learn how you see your identity. So I have a question for you. How do you identify yourself? That's an open question that we all have the ability to open up that door of dialogue and how we identify ourselves, because I want to begin to talk about the power of identity. And identity is very powerful, and it could be very impactful, but it is something that we have to examine how we see ourselves, because that's dealing with our identity. Because identity is what people are going to remember who we are, and then that's their definition of us based off of our identity. So we're going to be talking about the power of identity. So how do you see yourself? How do you define yourself? And what are your traits that you have dealing with your identity? So doing my research, talking about identity, it was saying that there are two traits of identity, which is, I think it was, what was it? Continuity, and it could be consistency. I don't know. It'll hit me, and then I'll get back to it. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So, hey, make sure you share this live, because today is going to be deep. Today is going to be very, very deep when we're talking about identity and the power of identity. All right, the two important features. The two important features of identity is continuity and contrast, because it's talking about continuity. What's the continuity of your identity? The continuity of your identity is that people can count on you to be the same person tomorrow as you are today. So those are the two important features of identity, which is continuity. Somebody put continuity in the chat for those that going to be that's watching it on the replay. The two features of identity is continuity and contrast. So put that in the chat, and then I want you to go look those two words up later and see how and if you can identify with those two particular words, and how do you see those two important traits of identity in your life. Remember, it's continuity and contrast. Again, when we're talking about the continuity of it, is, are you the same person today as you are? Will you be the same person today as you are tomorrow? So let's go ahead and jump 2 feet into this. The power of identity. Of course, those who know the platform, you know that you will learn something, because I'm going to give you the definition of the words, and then I'm going to give it my own little twist to it, just to look at it from a different perspective. So the contrast will always be the highlighted image, but I would tell you what's the color. It's either white over red or red over white. So we're talking about the definition of identity. And the definition of identity is the distinguishing factor or personality of an individual. So, like I asked you in the beginning, how do you identify yourself, and how do you see your identity? So again, the definition is the distinguishing factor or personality of an individual. So the contrast here is red over white. So it's distinguishing. What distinguishes you from everybody else? From a business perspective, what are your distinguishing factors about your business, your brand identity? People can identify your business just from seeing your brand. People understand what your business is because they understand where they see the placement of your logo. That's your brand identity. So that could be a distinguishing factor between business A and business B because I can identify it because it's very distinguishing. Just like when you see McDonald's, you see the golden arches and you put Burger King right next to it. When someone asks you, where's McDonald's? I mean, no words, just the golden arches, and you got a king's crown. And they ask you, which one can you identify as being McDonald's? It is the distinguishing factor is that brand authority from the golden arches. But now when we're dealing with the personal you, the person that you are, what are your distinguishing characteristics? What character do people identify you with? Now, that's something that you've created. It's not something that someone is putting on you. I mean, outside of things that people can misjudge or misinterpret, but an identity is the distinguishing. What is the distinguishing factor? So now we're talking about power because remember we're saying the power of identity. So if we're talking about the power of identity, we still want to uh, look at what power is and how power can be, how we begin to define the power of identity. Now, there's no contrast with this because power is power itself. You know, you're not mixing power, but you give power. So now we're talking about power. Power is authority, power is command, power is control, power is dominion, power is jurisdiction, and power is sway. So now when we're talking about the power of identity, the R2 definition of power of identity is the distinguishing authority of who you are. The distinguishing, remember, when we're talking about this identity, is the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. And if we're talking and we're merging the two, power, authority, command, control, dominion, jurisdiction, and sway, blended together is the distinguishing authority of who you are. Your authority can command the room. Well, I take that back. Your identity can bring about a commanding presence. Do you know anybody that has a identity that commands presence in the room without that individual opening their mouths? That's that distinguished identity, that authority in the room by just being present. That commanding identity that has been seen without the person even opening their mouths, because that's when we're talking about the power of identity. How are you identified, and what do you identify with, and where are you in that identification? The power of identity is the distinguishing authority of who you are. So now we're just going to take a real deep dive into talking about the power of authority, because it's like, why do we feel that identity is important today? That's a question that is proposed to you. Why do you feel that identity is important today in this day and age? Why do you see it? I'm interested in learning from you and how you see authority. I mean, how do you see identity? Because identity can actually play an important role in how we empower ourselves, right? If we're really taking a deep dive into who we are and who we identify with or who we identify as, we have to understand that your identity can begin to empower yourself because it now gives you the ability to exercise that responsibility of who you are. I am a business owner. I am uh, a role model. I am strong. I am confident. That's you identifying with those particular characteristics. That's the deep dive in you knowing who you are because you're empowering yourself and exercising your right and responsibilities. I will take on the responsibilities of who I say that I am because now I'm becoming consistent in the who that I say that I am. Because remember, when we're talking about the continuity and we're talking about the contrast, my continuity, if I'm taking on the responsibility of of my continuity, that means I'm the same person on Tuesday as I was on Monday, or I'm the same person on Wednesday as I was on Tuesday, because I am empowered and I'm exercising the right of my responsibility. So it's not you running from your responsibility, but it's you exercising the rights to your responsibility of who you say that you are. So now, who are you? Who are you? Now, I remember coming up, I think it was like uh Sunday school when they was talking about Paul transitioning into Saul. Because when Paul got knocked down, um his identity changed because he was given a new name, right? For those that remember, now I don't remember everything, but I do remember that Saul became Paul. But when Saul got knocked down, his identity changed. So then the characteristics of Paul began to be exemplified by who he was and the actions that he had begun to take. But it took him getting knocked off his horse and knocked off his pedestal to learn that who he is right now is not who he was yesterday, because he began to change something about himself. His name changed and his identity changed with it. So when we're looking at who you are, you have to learn and know and understand that we have to know our identity in order for our thoughts to change. Because Saul had to change his thoughts because his name changed, because now he knows who he is, and he altered that. And it's about our thoughts and our personal characteristics, our interests and our skills. So what skills do you have that you can say, I am this? What interests do you have that you can say, I am about this? Because if you're talking about your interests, you're talking about the things that you do and the things that you say and the things that you like and the skills that you have that are attached with it. Your gifts and your skills and your talents could be identified, how you carry yourself, what you say, and what you do when it's time to do that particular thing that need to be done. And the second thing that I want you to look at, what's the psychology of it? Trust me, there's some psychology that comes with it, because if there is something new about you, then there are new thoughts that you're having. I mean, right? I mean, if you're looking at it from an honest perspective, the psychology of your identity is based off of your own individual qualities of how you see yourself, your own individual beliefs, your own individual personality, and the looks that you carry. Like, you can see someone and how well they think highly of themselves. They're going to carry themselves with a different type of swag. They're going to carry themselves with a different type of meaning. You can see it, how they carry themselves. So that's the psychology of your identity. Who do you see yourself? I mean, how do you see yourself? Because it is really like a combination of the things you do, the combination of your talents, your strengths, your passions, and also what you love. It plays an important role in in your daily life. The psychology of how you see and of how you see yourself and how are you identified. Stop worrying about how other people identify you, because sometimes the people are only identifying you by the things that you do, because you're not living the who that you are openly. People are making you say, "Oh, that's not who I am." But then I have to ask you, really? Is that really not who you are? Because it sure look like it every day. That's the same person I see every day. If we're talking about continuity, if it is if the continuity of Monday and Tuesday is this person, then I guarantee they'll be the same person on Wednesday until you change those beliefs. You can have a belief system that tears down your character, and people will identify that based off of what they see that comes from you every day. So if you want to change how people see you, change your belief system, change if you want to change what you do, then look at the talents that you have, look at the strengths that you have, and people can identify that. Because remember, there is psychology when it comes to your identity. And then I want you begin to really begin to define who you are. Because when we look at it, we look at who we are and we see two things. And I want you to understand these two things. You can even put it in the chat. So looking at who you are, there's two things that I want you to identify, and I want you to even look at it for yourself. So the first thing is self identity. Now, we're not talking about nobody else. This is nobody else conversation, but it's a conversation between you and you. Self identity. And the other one is self image. Self identity and self image. Self meanings that is who is responsible for the action. Because remember, self is the responsibility. And then when you hyphenate and whatever comes after that, that is the action, meaning self identity, meaning that I have to action how I am being, how I see myself. Self image, I have to action how I see, how I am being seen. Because self identity is the awareness of one's unique identity. What makes you unique? Because remember, if we're talking about something that is distinguishing, that means that is something that makes you unique. And the self image is the whole picture of who we believe we are and who we tell ourselves, and the others and how they see us. Because we're talking about the continuity, that means people see you a certain way every day. So that's the picture that they're painting of who you are. You can't blame it on nobody else but the identity or the persona that you're exuding into the world. So that becomes their self image of you. That becomes their their identity of how they see you. Because self image is one piece of that picture, and the other person's understanding is the other side of it. But it only comes from you. And that's when you begin to understand. Because the last thing that I really want you to really dig deep inside and pull this out of you is identity is a choice. It really is. But who do you choose to be? Do you choose to be brave? Do you choose to be confident? Do you choose to be strong? Do you choose to be victorious? Do you choose to be loving? Because identity is a choice, right? Because when we as people, we're naturally complex. We're a mixture of things. You know, we're a mixture of our mom's traits, our dad's traits, our environment, our experiences, all of that stuff. But because we're so complex with the mix of things, that we also understand that we have a mix of interactions, interacting characteristics. But because we have because we have a complex interacting of our characteristics, our identity is a choice between those characteristics. Who you choose to be today could alter and change your identity and how you are seen tomorrow. That is a choice. It is not something someone is putting on you, but that is something that you have to look so deep inside to see, or to say, I choose not to carry this trait anymore. Because if I want to identify as this, then I must live this all my days. Now, you remember, if identity is a choice, then you do have the ability to choose to change. It is your choice to change, not someone else's power that they want to push on you, but it is your choice to change. And I guarantee that our identity has countless small choices that we have to make. And because there are countless and millions of choices that we have to make, the characteristics and behaviors of all which melt together to make our senses, our external appearances, and they're singularly formed into this coherent identity in how we see ourselves. And the one thing that I really want you to understand is that the choice is yours. It really is. The choice is yours. So your power of identity is your power to choose who you are, the power to choose who you want to become, and the power to choose who you will be when you change the way that you think. It's the power of choice and the power of your identity. Be strong. Don't allow your identity to be lost in somebody else, because it's your identity. You were there before that person even came into your life. I mean, you love them. I mean, we love our significant others and stuff like that, but we still have to understand that we have our own personal identity. We can't be strong for somebody else if we cannot be strong for ourselves. You can't be powerful. You can't exude strength at work and be weak at home. That should be a characteristics that has some sort of continuity between where you are and who you are. It should be there. That's your power of choice. And that's the power of identity. Be strong, be loving, be beautiful, and be back tomorrow, 7:30. No, I'm just playing. I definitely appreciate everybody for being here at Consistency is Currency, and I'll see you tomorrow, 7:30. And I'll open the floor. Give me a word, and I guarantee you, I'll make a whole lesson plan out of it. So put whatever type of word, your favorite word or whatever it is, and I'll talk about it tomorrow. I'll choose one. So if I get 3 or 4 words, then I'll make it Thursday, Friday, and make that lesson on Monday, whichever one. So drop a word inside the comment, and I will make a whole lesson out of that word itself, because there's power in words. But how do we use the words? That's why I always show you the words and I give you the definition, because I want you to begin to learn how much power is in words. Words can identify what we're doing and where we're about to go by just understanding the definition of it, or the etymology of the origin of the word itself. All right, so Y'all be blessed. And remember, see you tomorrow, 7:30 here at Consistency is Currency, your morning podcast of choice. Peace.